Falstead Darak is more bandit than revolutionary, but he and his Risen are going to be attacking the city of Sacrament, and as part of your Rats and Raiders quest, you need to stop them. So today I'm going to be going over the boss's moveset for both his first and second phase, because after you defeat him once, that's not the end. Once his health gets low, he retreats, regroups, and you fight him again. The first part of that fight will be exactly the same as your initial fight. Then the second part of that fight will be very, very different. So I'm going to show both fights back to back, then break down a few moves that are of particular interest, and after that, show the fights again, this time completely uncut with no commentary. Like with most bosses and even enemies in No Rest for the Wicked, the fastest way to defeat Falstead Darak is simply dodge behind him. However, unlike a lot of other bosses, he specializes in multi-hit combos, so dodging behind him isn't necessarily going to be the right answer all the time. Sometimes you really should just run away from him for a little bit, count his attacks, and wait for an opening. With that said, No Rest for the Wicked is still in early access and undergoing development. A lot's going to change, new bosses are going to be added, so if you want to defeat those as well, get subscribed for boss guides when those come out. For now, let's get into things, starting with a fight and some commentary. When the fight begins, the boss roars and then charges at you. He generally tends to use this charge attack when you're at a distance, and always ends it in the same overhead strike, making it pretty darn easy to avoid. He has 3 combos, a 2-hit combo, a 4-hit combo, and a 5-hit combo. It's a little hard to tell when he's starting a 2 or a 4, but a 5 always starts with 2 strikes against the ground, followed by 3 attacks. He's always exhausted, kneeling down after both the 4 and 5-hit combo. This is a perfect time to get damage in on him. So if you see him swinging wildly, dodge backwards, create some distance, giving yourself enough time to avoid his attacks. If he attacks twice, give him a little bit to see what he does. If he attacks more than twice, count it. 1, 2, 3, and then on 3, dodge in, avoiding his damage and striking him while he's weak. Same thing if he starts smacking the ground, count it, 1, 2 on the ground, then 1, 2, 3, dodge in on the 5th and avoid it while he's weak. He also actively uses his shield in combat, both with a wide swinging shield bash and a shield slam that he can repeat up to 3 times. Both of these are pretty dangerous as they can stagger you. However, like with a lot of his wide sword swings, if you're able to time things right, a parry not only staggers him, but allows you a perfect window of opportunity for dealing damage yourself. So watch the boss's attacks and be a little patient, because remember, he's going to give you plenty of opportunities to deal damage whenever he kneels down. You can wait for those without rushing in, thus conserving your health and hopefully sparing you a few wipes. The second time you fight Falstead, after you get his health all the way down to 0, he rapidly transforms into a Torn. So as soon as you get his health down to 0, get away from him immediately. The flailing tentacles that emerge from his body can absolutely damage you and completely destroy you. Now in this form, his attacks are much more wide-reaching and kind of go off the screen. Luckily, very few of them will hit behind him. So, if you're not quite sure what he's going to do, dodge behind him. The wide tentacle swipe that I took just a second ago is pretty much the only one that will actually hit you if you're off to the side / behind. Even his sword swings generally only hit in front and arc to the side. That said, there are a couple of things to keep an eye out for. One, if he pulls all of his tentacles back, he's going to leap forward covering a lot of distance. If you're far away from him, this is particularly dangerous as it can be genuinely hard to see. The other thing to be careful of is his charge attack, which he does by leaping up into the air using his tentacles as legs. This hits quite hard, but deals damage in a narrow radius, and actually you might not even need to dodge it if he starts using it when he's close to you. In this phase, it can be genuinely hard to read him, so don't worry too much if you get hit. Just wait for him to attack, dodge behind, get in a hit. If you've taken some damage, wait for him to attack, dodge behind, heal up. Repeat this pattern and you should be fine. Next up, I want to highlight 3 moves from phase 1 and 3 moves from phase 2, just so you can see the attack play out a couple of times and really pay attention to those animations, because knowing these is the key to defeating this boss smoothly, or the key to tanking the floor because you didn't read the attack right. The first is Falstead's Kick. This is an extremely vicious move that will knock you to the ground, leaving you vulnerable to any follow-up. So, to avoid this, don't stand in front of a boss. But if you are hit, mash your dodge button to recover and avoid further damage. Next up, let's show the combos again. Or more accurately, I'm going to show first the 4-strike combo, where he dashes around, covering quite a bit of distance with his spinning slashes. Because he covers so much distance, I personally found it best to move away from him entirely or simply parry the attack. Now alternatively, this is his 5-hit combo. As you can see, it begins with the 2 overhead vertical slashes, then goes into sweeping slashes. Now, his moveset is pretty versatile, and he tends to mix both overhead vertical and wide horizontal sweeping slashes. If you're going to try to parry on one of a horizontal rather than a vertical, as I found a parry window to be a little bit more generous there. Then there's his shield slam, which is really hard to recover from, especially when he uses it multiple times. So, because the multi-hit variation of this attack is so dangerous, unless you know what you're doing, don't even bother trying to parry it, just move away from him and let him do it. You'll have plenty of other opportunities to attack him once he becomes exhausted. Then for his second tentacle phase, first is that lunging strike that I mentioned, where he pulls all of his tentacles back and then whips them across the screen. The best thing you can do to avoid taking massive damage from this attack is to make sure you can see him at all times. The windup is pretty darn significant, but if you go too far away, you will absolutely miss it. Then second of all, we have the tentacle jump, where he uses his extra tentacles as legs to execute a jumping attack. This jump covers significant distance, but it doesn't actually deal damage in a wide area. So as long as you can see where he is and dodge roll once, you should be totally fine. Beyond that, his tentacle phase is really hard to read, at least from my experience, but like I said before, almost all of the attacks strike in front of him. And in fact, in the case of his tentacle slam, where he continually strikes in front of him multiple times, if you dodge behind, this can be the perfect opportunity to deal some damage, because he isn't able to turn around and adjust fast enough. And so that's how I defeated Falstead Darak. Now I have to say, this is a tough fight, and especially his second phase is difficult to read. So don't feel bad if you end up dying. Don't feel bad if you end up dying a lot. I ended up kind of doing things out of order, where I actually defeated Falstead much later when I was pretty over-leveled, because I just missed him as part of a story. I got the key and then I thought, oh, sewers, yeah, I'll get back to that later. It turns out it was kind of important, and I only circled back to him when I realized that I needed to complete this quest to unlock the Serum Crucible and start doing the actual endgame. But I had done some grinding to prepare, so ultimately it was a pretty easy fight for me. Now if you're looking for something else to watch, maybe check out my other boss guides, or learn about Finley, the secret vendor in No Rest for the Wicked. Links to those videos will be up in the card and down below. Before I go, I'd like to take a minute to thank my patrons and channel members for the continued support. For as little as $1 a month, you can help make videos just like this one possible. Link to support is down below. And also, thanks to everyone who watched to the end. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know which part was your favorite. Did you like the boss fight with commentary, the breakdown of several moves, or the uncut fight at the end? Regardless of which you prefer, I hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next one.